One of the most critical passages in the arsenal of pro-slavery American writers was this one, Genesis 9:25-27. If you've never heard of the idea before, you may wonder what it has to do with slavery in America. You're right, it has nothing to do with it. But pro-slavery authors performed a series of exegetical gymnastics to get it there. Let's have a look at how. The sum of how this passage was used amounts to this. White people in America were understood to be descendants of Noah's son Japheth. Persons of African descent were considered to be descendants of Ham. Therefore, they reasoned, descendants of Japheth had a right to enslave descendants of Ham. Now, you don't need to be paying too close attention to catch the obvious problem. It wasn't Ham's descendants this prediction was made about, it was Canaan's. And if you take the Bible's record at face value, as both sides of this debate did, you'd have to explain how you get out of this a justification for slavery of African peoples, seeing as how Canaan is way over here outside of Africa. As a way to explain this, some pro-slavery exegetes resorted to all kinds of wacky extra-biblical speculation with no grounds in evidence. One such argument made was that maybe the Canaanites later moved to Africa and became the Africans they knew of in the 19th century. Another suggestion was that sometime later, Noah also cursed Ham the way he did Canaan. We just don't know about it. Maybe the worst explanation of all was one where pro-slavery writers basically argued in a circle, saying that the very fact that the African peoples were now enslaved proved that they must have been descended from Canaan. So you can see that it didn't take much or very long for pro-slavery writers to leave the Bible behind and run to extra-biblical speculations or arguments. Did they ever actually stick with the Bible when it came to this passage? Yes, in one instance, but even then, what they did only further demonstrated their dishonesty. One of their arguments was that some versions of Genesis have Ham as the subject rather than Canaan. A certain Bishop Newton was referred to as having found this variant in the Arabic version of Genesis, as well as in some copies of the Greek Old Testament. The ultimate rebuttal to this idea is found in this work, David Mark Whitford's The Curse of Ham in the Early Modern Era, but let's sum up the findings on this point. Basically, this Bishop Newton ignored some crucial information, particularly that the Arabic Genesis was a 9th century product, while 4 earlier versions, including the Greek Old Testament and the Latin Vulgate, read the same way our modern English versions do. It's true that a few copies of the Greek Old Testament have Newton's preferred reading. Actually, only 8 copies, and none of those are from earlier than the 12th century. In terms of textual criticism, this one's supremely bogus, and obviously so. Any slaveholder who thought that this was a valid argument that defeated abolitionists, or that Genesis 9:25-27 supported their views, obviously didn't have the rules of evidence on their mind. And we'll see how that's so in further examples in this series.